General Motors is basically a two-country car brand. It relies on the United States and China for more than 80% of its global profit and global sales. And whilst General Motors are doing pretty well in the United States right now, which is really good to see, they're doing incredibly poorly in China, and they're about to be disrupted in a big way. In fact, not about to be, it's happening right now as we speak, and it could be a very big problem for the company. Maybe it's why Elon Musk believes General Motors will go bankrupt. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. My name's Sam Evans, and we've got to say there's a precedent for General Motors in bankruptcy. I mean, they were just bailed out to the tune of, what was it, about $55 billion only 15 years ago. Now, they have paid back a lot of that money, but US taxpayers still did lose $11 billion on that deal. So, yeah, it was good and bad. I'd say more bad than good. But what's going on in China right now for General Motors is especially alarming, because remember, GM's strategy was to focus on where it makes a profit. It made huge losses in order to pull out of Australia. It pulled out of Australia completely. It pulled out of pretty much most of Europe. They don't really sell cars there at all anymore. It basically wanted to say, you know what, why are we selling cars in all these places where we're not making money out of them? Let's just stop doing that. It's dumb. Let's focus on our main markets. The United States, China, of course, Canada as well. You know, countries in those areas. But clearly, China and the US are the most important markets by a mile. Unfortunately for General Motors, they've lost a huge amount of market share within a very short space of time in China. I mean, here's some numbers for you. Chevrolet sales in China. In 2018, GM sold 680,000 Chevrolet vehicles. In 2022, that number has now dropped to 230,000. About 1/3 of where they were at only a few years ago. Now, the Buick brand is doing much, much better in China than Chevrolet. However, a similar sort of thing is happening there as well. In 2017, General Motors sold 1.22 million Buick vehicles. In 2021, they sold 828,000. In 2022, that figure was closer to 650,000, meaning they lost 50% of their market share for Buick as well. Now, if we just go off comparing 2022 to 2021, well, yeah, sales have still fallen as well. For example, GM Authority reported on their sales figures being down by 22% in the fourth quarter alone. Just the fourth quarter, GM are down 22%. So yeah, in the US, they did really well. In China, unfortunately, even though they sell a lot more EVs in China than they do in the US, well, things are looking a little bit dire. GM China sales decreased 22% to 576,000 during the fourth quarter of 2022. And that's after a pretty bad year in 2021. Sales decreased at the Buick, Chevrolet, Wuling, and Baojun brands, while increasing in the Cadillac brand, but that's obviously more of a niche model. Buick sales decreased 16% in the fourth quarter to 167,500 vehicles. The Envision Plus midsize crossover saw a threefold sales growth year over year because it's a relatively new vehicle. And the Velite EV group of cars actually had a big increase of 42%. You can see if you make a compelling electric car, pretty good chance you're going to sell it, even in a tough market like China. But unfortunately, the majority of GM's Buicks and Chevrolet vehicles are actually not EVs. Here's another example. The Chevy Monza remained the brand's best-selling vehicle in China, period, but its sales went down. However, the Chevy Menlo EV more than doubled its sales from a year earlier. Now, what about GM's joint venture? Well, it's a tri-venture with Wuling and SAIC to make the Wuling Hongguang Mini and a series of other electric mini cars. Well, in the fourth quarter of 2022, sales for that company, GM's other Chinese joint venture, responsible for the Wuling and Baojun brands, decreased by 30%. Unfortunately, the Baojun brand is doing pretty badly. its sales decreased by 76.2%. And considering that's an EV-only brand, it's surprising to see. Wuling, well, their sales decreased by 26%. However, the Wuling Mini EV did remain China's best-selling electric vehicle. And in other countries, they call it a quadricycle because it's a very small EV, but who cares? It's getting people out of gasoline-powered vehicles into EVs. So here's the key issue. About, 40% of General Motors' profit comes from China. Obviously, the other approximately 40% comes from the United States. Might be a little bit more than that now, actually. But obviously, if General Motors continues on this trajectory towards losing enormous amounts of market share, or at least enormous amounts of sales within a short period of time, only a few years, and their sales have gone down probably around about 50% in the last 4 years in China, it means massive profit loss. And well, right now, General Motors, they can't really afford that. Why do I say that? Well, they're investing money into EVs, massive amounts of money. They're saying they're going to have more than 30 different models of EV. In fact, they said they'd have 18 different models of electric cars for sale in October of 2022. So they said a few years ago. Obviously, that didn't happen. But clearly, they are investing into EVs because they believe they're the future. That's a good thing. But that costs a lot of money. Now, if you're not making money in China, you're only making money in the US. Well, if you have a bad year in the US or a bad few months in the US, things can start to get pretty difficult. Remember how quickly it happened for General Motors when they last went bankrupt? I mean, you get some sort of microeconomic shocks happening at the same time. What happens? The global automotive market goes down. All of a sudden, things get hard. Things get very difficult. And maybe you can't pay your bills. Remember, General Motors does have a lot of debt. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.